The trade war between the US and China caused economic pain on both sides and led to a diversion of trade flows away from both China and the United States. US economic growth slowed, business investments froze, and companies didn't hire as many people. Chinese trade industries are also suffering. The study says trade and trade diversion effects of the United States tariffs on China shows that the ongoing US-China trade war has resulted in an intense drop in bilateral trade, higher prices for consumers, and trade diversion impacts. Many sectors are already bearing losses, and some industries are on the brink of bankruptcy. The Chinese tire industry is the recent add-on to that list. Shandong Yongtai Group Company, the 10th largest maker of tires in China, declared bankruptcy earlier this month because of pressure from the US-China trade war. On August 2nd, the Dongying City Intermediate People's Court in Shandong Province accepted the company's bankruptcy filing. The company was established in 1996, was ranked 32nd in 2016 on US Magazine's Tire Business list of the world's most powerful tire companies. At its peak, the company had more than 5,000 employees. It's the biggest bankruptcy case in China's tire industry so far. The US Department of Commerce has imposed anti-dumping and countervailing duties on Chinese tire imports since at least 2008, blaming tire makers for selling goods in the United States at less than fair value. They also stated the Beijing government provides companies with backings that sabotage the competition. The Yongtai Group bankruptcy was driven by several internal and external factors, but mostly the trade war. In recent years, China's tire industry has had serious overproduction, leading to more supply than demand. China Tire Dealer briefed that Yongtai Group's situation isn't a special case. Shandong Province is home to the most tire companies in China, with more than 300 that account for 3/5 of the entire industry. However, from 2017 to August, 35 tire makers in Shandong have been shuttered and declared bankruptcy. After the overproduction crisis, the trade war was the final nail in the coffin. The bankruptcy marathon started with the Deribo tires. But until Deribo Tire filed for bankruptcy, the company has been in 4.7 billion yuan of debt, with 2 billion yuan of loan from banks. Deribo Tire has stopped into difficulty since 2012. Deribo's mother company, Shandong Haolong Group, has filed for bankruptcy several times before but was refused by the local government and lived on loan until now. With USA's anti-dumping and anti-subsidiary investigation starting from the second half year in 2014, tire makers' investment in Guangrao began cooling down. Before that, local tire makers often supplied assurance for each other. Deribo's guarantee included Qingdao Double Star, Shaishang Technology, Mesnac, and Grade 2 Inc., and gained up to 894 million yuan of guarantee quota for the Ford guarantees by the end of 2012. Now, Deribo Tire's loan has become Ford Company's bad debts, with the USA levies heavy duties on Chinese tire products since January 2015. Analysts predict that the Deribo Tire won't be the only one sinking, which means bad debts in Guangrao would be a serious risk soon. Industrial experts said that blind investment and no experience in the tire industry made the Deribo Tire to be the first sacrificial lamb when China's tire industry got into winter. According to a China Rubber Industry Association survey, in the first quarter of this year, about 15% of the top 39 tire companies have fully or partly stopped production. About 40% of the companies had incurred more financial losses than previous years, while 30% said their profit margins dropped. Only 15% have seen growth in sales and profits. Experts and manufacturers of this field believe that with the escalation of the US-China trade war, tariffs will make things worse. China exports 40% of the tires it produces, with the United States as its main export market, accounting for about a quarter of that total. Tires are among the list of more than 800 Chinese goods subject to 25% duties as part of the United States' first set of tariffs on $34 billion of products that went into effect in early July. The tariffs that went into effect on Thursday apply to a vast range of goods in 279 product categories, including semiconductors, plastics, chemicals, and railway equipment and fridges. China's list of 333 U.S. product categories includes coal, copper scrap, fuel, buses, and medical equipment. Previous items affected included steel, soybeans, fruit, wine, whiskey, and pig products. The U.S. has threatened a third round of tariffs on an additional $200 billion of Chinese goods, which include many more consumer products than the previous lists. These could come as soon as next month. It hasn't said those items, which include bikes, baby cots, and animal medicine, could be hit with a 25% levy, more than double the 10% originally planned. U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war against China has moved up a gear as it brings in a 25% tax on the second wave of goods worth $16 billion. The move ratchets up the conflict, which had already seen trade tariffs being imposed earlier this year. There are fears that more tariffs could cause further damage to companies and consumers. Goods affected this time include motorcycles and aerials, and as anticipated, China immediately imposed retaliatory taxes on the same value of U.S. products. President Trump has been ringing off about unfair trade since even before he became president. During the 2016 election campaign, he said China engaged in the rape of the American economy. He ordered an investigation into Chinese trade policies in August 2017 and has been steadily imposing tariffs on China's goods since January this year. His administration says the tariffs are planned to counter Chinese practices such as state subsidies that make it difficult for U.S. companies to compete against their Chinese competitors. President Trump thinks that by slapping on an extra tax or tariff, he will make life easier for U.S. companies whose goods will become cheaper within the U.S. by comparison. The actions are part of the president's broader America First policy, which has also provoked the U.S. to impose higher import duties on steel and aluminum, including from Mexico, Canada, and the European Union. All of those countries have avenged. China said it would respond with another tariff on $60 billion of U.S. goods. Although Mr. Trump states his moves will protect U.S. industry and business, dozens of U.S. companies and industry groups have testified to the U.S. Trade Representative's office that their businesses are being harmed. Many firms are tense that Chinese retaliatory tariffs will make their products more expensive and reduce demand. For businesses that rely on Chinese imports, U.S. tariffs also threaten to raise costs, leading to higher prices for U.S. customers. But some businesses welcome the move though. The Southern Shrimp Alliance is glad not to have to compete with Chinese shrimp products. It also says these are health risks to the American public, so there's an additional benefit to the tariffs here. President Trump's trade war against China did achieve the main objective of flipping a U.S. decline in manufacturing. Economic data show tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of Chinese goods were driven to discourage imports. The tariffs did succeed in reducing the trade deficit with China in 2019, but the overall U.S. trade imbalance was bigger than ever that year, and it has continued climbing, skyrocketing to a record $84 billion in August as U.S. importers moved to cheaper sources of goods from Vietnam, Mexico, and other countries. The trade deficit with China also has risen amid the pandemic and is back to where it was at the start of the Trump administration. According to the Trump administration, the tariffs, which remain on about $370 billion in Chinese goods annually, will over time force China to end unfair practices and help rebuild the U.S. manufacturing base, but it's yet to see. Another goal was the U.S. factory production, which hasn't happened either. Job growth in manufacturing started to slow in July 2018. Tariffs are trying to bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. According to their statistics, it shows a net gain of 400,000 U.S. manufacturing jobs from November 2016 until March 2020, when the pandemic forced widespread factory closures. An industry-by-industry analysis by the Federal Reserve showed that tariffs did help boost employment by 0.3% in industries exposed to trade with China by giving protection to some domestic industries to cheaper Chinese imports. China blames the U.S. and has accused it of unilaterally heightening tensions between the two economic giants. It'll be difficult for Beijing to match the U.S. threats because its manufacturers export far more products than American businesses send to China, as well as China could make life harder for the U.S. to do business in China by increasing the cost and amount of red tape. Officials from the U.S. and China are now holding low-level talks in Washington, but hopes are not high that they will bring the conflict to an end.